Celebrating the best years of 2018, it's the Yearies! Hey y'all, Scott here, and welcome to the Yearies, the annual yearly Year of the Year awards that awards the finest in years this past year. Before we get to Year of the Year for 2018, let's take a moment to reflect on the years we've lost over the years. This might take a while. Yeah, looks like we got about 6 hours to kill while that video plays. The problem is, after preparing for the Yearies so much, the only two things I'm good at discussing right now are years and games. So I just gotta come up with some year-based video game topics. Oh! Games and years. Can't have one without the other, and plus, those two words are on my top 3 favorite concepts list, the third word being Jeff Keighley.
Here to present Game of the Year, Jeff Keighley.
It's as inevitable as this sentence having 27 words in it. Game of the Year is something that every entertainment publication squirts out each and every December. Of course, you get the side awards, like Best Art Direction, Best PlayStation 4 Game, most likely to get shot in an Amish village, but Game of the Year is the one award that gets everybody's attention. Now, this term doesn't have much value to it in my opinion. With other entertainment mediums like movies, the Academy Award for Best Picture is generally regarded as the most prestigious award a film can receive. Doesn't always mean the film's that great or entertaining, but still, it's definitely the cream of the crop in terms of film awards. Games don't really have that. Sure, the Game Awards is trying their hardest, but the phrase Game of the Year is thrown around so much, especially on re-releases of games. After a game's run its course and all the downloadable content and updates are out for it, sometimes a Game of the Year edition is released with everything all on one disc. You see, that's all fine and good, but a lot of games that were never awarded Game of the Year still call the re-release the Game of the Year edition. For example, Dead Island Game of the Year edition. Really? While many actively look forward to the announcement of Game of the Year from all the large gaming publications or award ceremonies, tons of people take a moment to reflect on their personal gaming experiences over the past year, asking, hey, what was the best video game I played? Not me though, that's really something I think about. I don't make it a crazy big priority to immediately play a game in its release year, so when Game of the Year season comes rolling around, I don't normally pick one. I don't know, I just play a lot of games a year or so after their release, so the games I've played this year list generally looks pretty out there. I played BioShock Infinite a year after it released. I played The Last of Us 2 years after it released. I played Nintendo Labo the year it released. You see why I don't immediately pick a Game of the Year? So why not make up for the past 18 years of not having a personal Game of the Year by going through some of my favorite sequences of 4 numbers and seeing what games were generally nominated for Game of the Year from the big fat publications and what game I would personally pick, even if it wasn't generally nominated for Game of the Year. The general Game of the Year nominations for each year I'll be showing are just what I perceived as the general Game of the Year nominees, kind of the average ones the Game Awards and the big online gaming websites nominated, but what I pick as my Game of the Year will be solely based on what I played. And hey, why not? We'll go all the way back to 2001. Yeah, we're only covering my post-fetus era. My pre-fetus era can wait another day. Now please keep in mind, when I say a certain game is my Game of the Year, it is solely based on my opinion, and it could be for a variety of different reasons. Which game was the most fun, which game was the most impressive, which game was the most groundbreaking. It really changes from year to year what constitutes as a Game of the Year for me. And also, there's a reason why these posters are plastered around the neighborhood. Please don't take me seriously. 2018 was a big fat whatever year for me. As a self-proclaimed publisher of Donkey Konga 2 enthusiast, this was a pretty weak year in terms of Nintendo offerings. Thankfully though, Sony picked up the slack, and at the end of the year, Microsoft said, oh shit, we could have released games this year. Generally, Game of the Year nominees were God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Spider-Man, Celeste, and Monster Hunter World. I only played God of War and Celeste out of these, and it's really great that Celeste got some recognition. I mean, it's a sprite-based, hard-as-nails 2D indie platformer, so to see it competing for the same award as some of the largest entertainment productions of all time was pretty nice to see. God of War has been a pretty solid time. I haven't beaten it yet, but the storytelling and presentation are on another level, and it actually has gameplay. So far, it doesn't seem like the deepest thing out there, but nothing's more fun than throwing your axe and begging for it to come back home. Like I said, God of War has gameplay, which is something Red Dead 2 apparently doesn't have. Alright, Red Dead 2 does look freaky solid, but from what I've heard, it seems to prioritize realism and story compared to just being a straight up fun game. I do own it, just haven't popped it in yet. I heard it has a pretty slow start, but the people who stuck with it seem to greatly enjoy it. Solid production overall, it just seems that many preferred the first one. Spider-Man and Monster Hunter World were admirable contenders, but let's be honest, they definitely didn't stand too much of a chance in comparison to the others. Tetris Effect was one I saw on a few Game of the Year lists, and this game deserves 3 oofs in a row. This is a crazy experience, especially in VR. Doesn't help the fact that it's still Tetris, so it's kinda hard to warrant this being a Game of the Year. Shadow of the Colossus was also pretty banging, however it was a remake, so if there was a 2005 Game of the Year award in the 2018 Game Awards, it definitely would have cleaned house in that category. But what about Smash Bros. Ultimate? Why wasn't that game nominated for Game of the Year that much? Well, Ultimate came out a little too late in the year to be eligible for a ton of awards. They're just gonna keep on making the deadline earlier and earlier. Can't wait for the 2030 Game of the Year to be announced on March 2nd, 2030. Also, while Ultimate's a great time, its focus on old content makes it hard to warrant winning Game of the Year. My Game of the Year was probably Smash Bros. Ultimate. Breath of the Wild. Okay, let's be fair here. 2017 was one of those magical years in gaming, where multiple companies pumped out genre-defining title after genre-defining title, all within the same year. General nominees were The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. That's dumb. The Game Awards, the DICE Awards, South by Southwest Game Awards, and countless others nominated PUBG for Game of the Year. This isn't Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, this is 2017. I think it was kinda stupid that PUBG was nominated before it was even officially released. It was in early access, a public beta for the majority of the year, and it was really only nominated not due to its overall quality, but mainly just because it was the new multiplayer craze. Sure, millions upon millions of people were enjoying the game, and fun is what video games are all about, but it wasn't officially released. Persona 5 was a huge game, but it didn't have the same general audience appeal that Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, and Horizon all had. Horizon Zero Dawn was a beautiful, vast, open-world game that sorta had strengths and departments that Breath of the Wild had weaknesses in. For example, the story. However, Breath of the Wild completely redefined the open-world experience and got people who didn't play a ton of Zelda games like myself to fully beat one for the first time. I'm definitely more of a Mario fan, and while Super Mario Odyssey was an absolute blast and a fantastic game, it didn't really shake the world as much as Breath of the Wild did. It was mainly an excellent new 3D Mario game that showed off tons of creativity, while Breath of the Wild was just a bit more. But that wasn't all for 2017. Nier Automata, Cuphead, Neo, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Hellblade, Wolfenstein 2, Assassin's Creed Origins, Resident Evil 7, Sonic Mania, effing Puyo Puyo Tetris. It's obvious 2017 was a huge year, but if I had to pick a Game of the Year, it has to be Breath of the Wild. Oh god. 2016 was one of my favorite garbage years in gaming. There's nothing really stuck with me this year, and the general nominations were all over the place. Most major publications had all different kinds of games running for the big one. Doom, Uncharted 4, Overwatch, Inside, The Witness, XCOM 2, Titanfall 2. These were the major ones. I played Doom and Uncharted 4, both pretty solid games. Doom was a fun blast of testosterone, and Uncharted 4 was a nice conclusion to Nathan Drake's story. A far too long nice conclusion to Nathan Drake's story, but still, a nice conclusion to Nathan Drake's story. Honestly though, my 3 favorite games were probably Ratchet & Clank, Kirby Planet Robobot, and Pac-Man Championship Edition 2. I'd probably say Ratchet & Clank was my Game of the Year. That game was just plain straight up fun. Right after I beat it all over again. Uncharted 4 was probably more impressive overall, but nowhere near as fun. Just replaying an hour of it, I was squirming in my seat ready to stop playing. Like, I really enjoyed my time with the game, but I already played it once. It's not something I want to play again, at least for the foreseeable future. I loved Pac-Man Championship Edition 2, but it was definitely a game that had to grow on ya. At first it seemed like a less interesting, weirder version of Pac-Man Championship Edition DX, but over time I grew to love it. Kirby Planet Robobot was just an excellent Kirby game, definitely my favorite of all time, but I'm still giving it to Ratchet & Clank. 2015 was a better 2016, and all I had to do was change a number. The Witcher 3, Metal Gear Solid 5, Fallout 4, Bloodborne, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Super Mario Maker, and for me it's really between the last two, Rise of the Tomb Raider and Super Mario Maker. I didn't play any of the other games, and Jesus Christ, saying this made me realize sometimes how few of the biggest games each year I play. Seriously, I hope you understand, sometimes I just don't play a lot of the biggest games each year, and sometimes I do. I generally play a lot of games a few years after they release, and I really don't know why I take pride in being tardy to the party with a lot of these games. I just started playing Yo Noid a whole 29 years after it released, so I'll tell you what I think about Fallout 4 in 2044. Anyways, Super Mario Maker was this magical experience that I always dreamed of as a kid, being able to make your own Mario levels. It was truly one of my most anticipated games of the year. My Game of the Year was probably Rise of the Tomb Raider. Yeah, Mario Maker didn't disappoint me, I just didn't get as into it as many others. Still really love it, I just wasn't as crazy about it as I thought I'd be. I think I'm just not as ecstatic about making my own levels as I was as a kid. Rise of the Tomb Raider, while I prefer its predecessor, was a great time, all because it gave me more of that sweet, sweet Tomb Raider reboot gameplay. It's like if Uncharted was more of a game, and I don't mean that as a jab to Uncharted. Tomb Raider simply has more game to it, while Uncharted is a better cinematic experience. Overall, 2015 didn't have a ton of heavy hitters for me overall, probably because 2014 was jam-packed with them. This will definitely go down in infamy as one of the hardest years for me to pick a game of the year. Start updating those textbooks, McGraw. Seriously, there really wasn't like one game to overpower everything. Some fantastic games released this year, but no game that was undoubtedly the best one. Definitely a lot of wiggle room for discussion. Nominees were generally Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, Bayonetta 2, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, Shovel Knight, Dragon Age Inquisition, and Hearthstone. Outside of those games, man, I adored Infamous Second Son, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Mario Kart 8, even Tomodachi Life. So many fun, great games this year. Shovel Knight was sort of the indie surprise to see on a few major Game of the Year lists, and hey, I really enjoyed Shovel Knight, but I wouldn't consider it one of my all-time favorites. It's still a phenomenal game though. The Game of the Year for many publications ended up being none other than Dragon Age Inquisition. Nobody fucking talks about this game anymore. I'm sure it's a great game and all, but this just never felt like, ooh, the best game of the year. It's like most were like, we don't want to give the award to a game with the subtitle for Wii U. That just looked tacky. At the end of the day though, I'm a tacky man who very much enjoyed Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. These were the games 2014 was building up to for me, and honestly, they really didn't disappoint me at the time. In retrospect, I can nitpick these games to death, but overall, they were still probably my games of the year. Now this was what you called a year, and finally, Game of the Year nominations I actually all played. BioShock Infinite, The Last of Us, Grand Theft Auto 5, Super Mario 3D World, A Link Between Worlds, Tomb Raider. I played through all of these, and in terms of Game of the Year nominees I didn't play, there was Gone Home and Dota 2. People think I hate Super Mario 3D World because I talked about hating it before. Actually, I think it's a perfectly fine and fun game, just nothing that interesting or exciting, and that's my main problem with it. It doesn't really do too much more than the bare minimum for a 3D Mario co-op game. I'm perfectly fine with it being just a linear obstacle course game. I'm just saying, this, and this look and are way more compelling and interesting than this. Mario 3D World is still a fun Mario game, it's just not much more than that. A Link Between Worlds is a similar situation. This is a great Zelda game, but it's pretty much just another Link to the Past. I mean, it'd be weird if it wasn't, it is the sequel, and it does have a lot of its own ideas, and they're all great. The whole wall merging mechanic and item renting spiel is all genius, I love it. But it's still pretty derivative of Link to the Past, so nothing mind-blowing, just another great classic Zelda game. The big three that really fought it out this year, though, were BioShock Infinite, The Last of Us, and Grand Theft Auto 5. Sorry, Tomb Raider, you were great, I love you, but any and all characters in this game besides Lara Croft were effing bogus, and it was basically just a multi-platform Uncharted. Not that that's a bad thing, Rise of the Tomb Raider was my 2015 Game of the Year, I'm just saying, there's a lot more competition this year. The Last of Us was a phenomenal experience that I never want to have again. You see, I love a lot of PlayStation exclusives, but most of them are kind of just one and dones for me, you know? Like, I enjoyed going through all the Uncharted games, The Last of Us, Infamous Second Son, and most recently God of War, but I do not see myself wanting to replay them, especially The Last of Us. Now, my opinions slightly changed on BioShock Infinite over time. I enjoyed what I played back in the day, but all I remember was the game feeling pretty repetitive after everything was said and done. Story sequence, fight this mob. Story sequence, fight this mob. Story sequence, over and over and over again. So I always said, yeah, it was alright, but felt pretty monotonous after a while. However, I did recently replay a bit of it after what have I been doing the past 5 years? Oh yeah, got older, and I'm able to appreciate the world of BioShock Infinite a lot more. Still, I'd probably say The Last of Us would beat it though. Its story is really compelling, yet incredibly easy for anybody to understand. Like, I can summarize this game in a quick paragraph and you could still tell it was a great story. You'd still want to see it played out. BioShock Infinite, I'd be explaining the story for 30 minutes, waving my arms around, and even I would have a hard time comprehending the plot. It's not a bad story by any means, I just think comparatively, The Last of Us does a better job delivering a story anybody can become attached to and understand. Grand Theft Auto 5 wins. I'm sorry, but Grand Theft Auto 5 is fun, has a decent story, is infinitely replayable, and technically impressive. The Last of Us and BioShock Infinite have great plots, but I just don't want to replay The Last of Us, and BioShock's gameplay isn't the most consistently enjoyable thing out there. Oh fuck, there was a year before 2013? Gotta be honest here, 2012 was a pretty boring year for gaming as a whole. Sure, my favorite worst Nintendo console out there released alongside a new Mario game, but the only thing New Super Mario Bros. U will ever be known for was being a new Mario game. Seriously, what even released in 2012? Mass Effect 3? NBA 2K13? While looking at general Game of the Year nominees, they were The Walking Dead, Dishonored, Journey, Fez, Halo 4, holy shit, I never played any of these, and there wasn't a ton of other amazing games that came out that I played. Like, what are my options? Like, New Super Mario Bros. 2 and Sticker Star? I would have played Kid Icarus Uprising, but when I bought it on Amazon, they sent me the European version. I couldn't play it, so I still haven't played this game. But, oh yeah, never mind, apparently Gravity Rush came out in 2012. I love Gravity Rush! I played through it for the first time in 2017, and on the first playthrough, I enjoyed it. The second playthrough, I really enjoyed it. The third playthrough, I kind of realized this is a great game. I love so much about it, especially the art style. The look of buildings in the distance being rough outlines really sells the whole comic book thing they're going for. I love Cat, I love the world. It's just such a fun game that took some time for me to truly embrace, but there's no going back now. Please play this if you haven't. Please. 2011 is what us in the year industry considered to be one of the thicker years in gaming. So much stuff came out, and a lot of it was crazy high quality. Batman Arkham City, Skyward Sword, Uncharted 3, Portal 2, Skyrim. I've dabbled in all of these games, but Uncharted 3 was the one I saw through till the very end, and it is not my game of the year. I liked Uncharted 3, but it just felt like more of Uncharted 2, but not as impressive as Uncharted 2 was when it released. So that leaves us with games I personally loved a ton from this year. Super Mario 3D Land gave some much needed worth to the 3DS, and while it's not the greatest Mario game out there, the level design was so good for handheld play, and it made those darn dang two characters in the 3DS's name worth something. But Sonic Generations, oh my god, this was such an amazing game back in the day, and it's still a great time. I'd argue 3D Modern Sonic was topped with this game, and the 2D sections featuring both modern and classic Sonic weren't too bad, albeit they were the worst parts of the stages. Bulletstorm was a fan favorite, and it was just a straight up fun shooter. Rayman Origins is a great game, and I do dig some LA Noire. But honestly, out of all the games I played in 2011, I probably enjoyed Sonic Generations the most. Mario 3D Land is definitely up there. I played a ton of this game back then, but Generations basically made me want an Xbox 360 more so than ever before. And wouldn't you know, I got one that year. Red Dead Redemption, God of War 3, Halo, Reach, Mass Effect 2, Super Mario Galaxy 2, all these Game of the Year nominees, but no GoldenEye 007 on Wii. I love the GoldenEye remake, yeah, I said it. It was the best first-person shooter on the Wii, no doubt, and the multiplayer was a little thing us GoldenEye Wii fans call fun. Red Dead Redemption is some great stuff, just like Grand Theft Auto in a debatably much more interesting time period and environment. And Donkey Kong Country Returns was a great comeback for the series. On 3DS, because the motion controls in the original Wii version make me but I'd feel a little weird if I didn't pick Mario Galaxy 2, the sequel to my favorite game of all time, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. This game was phenomenal, it was everything I wanted in a modern Pac-Man game. This is my 2010 Game of the Year, I only have a little shame. 2009, we got Batman Arkham Asylum, Assassin's Creed 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Uncharted 2, oh shit, remember when Call of Duty games got nominated for Game of the Year? Well, finally, we have Uncharted 2, definitely my favorite of the Uncharted series. I think I like Punch-Out on Wii more. God, now this is what you call a retro revival. Punch-Out brought back so much from the franchise's past and plopped it into a game that looks fantastic and plays even better. But it's definitely a shame it plays it crazy safe and doesn't throw a lot new out there. But we can't forget Wii Sports Resort. Say what you will, but this is such a fun game. But honestly, even when I think I had more fun with that and Punch-Out, I'm giving my Game of the Year to Uncharted 2. It really nailed not only being a good game, but a huge cinematic experience as well. Punch-Out was mainly just a blast from the past, and Wii Sports Resort had canoeing, oh god. It's Brawl. I'm picking Brawl. General nominees were Grand Theft Auto 4, Fallout 3, Gears of War 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, I'm still picking Brawl. To be fair, I've had my fair share of fun with Grand Theft Auto 4, and Burnout Paradise came out this year, and that game's phenomenal, but I'm still picking Brawl. Hit Super Mario Galaxy. BioShock, Halo 3, Mass Effect, Call of Duty 4, Uncharted, The Orange Box, my god, 2007 was an incredible year. And that's just getting started. Stuff like Metroid Prime 3, Crysis, God of War 2, oh my god. It may seem like it was pretty easy for me to pick my Game of the Year, and it was, but Mario Galaxy had some steep competition here. I mean, the Orange Box is like, what, 12 games in one or something? And it included Portal, one of the most creative and innovative games of the 21st century. And not only that, but Team Fortress 2 was also included as one of the 17 games in the Orange Box. Metroid Prime 3 showcased how well pointer functionality could work for Wii shooters. Crysis was a giant scheme to force you to buy $1 million computer to run it properly at the time, but hey, it looked nice. Plus, of course, Half-Life 2 episodes packed in as part of the 23 games in the Orange Box. But I'm the simplest of men, and if it ain't in brown shoes walking around planets, it ain't winning Game of the Year. 2006, home to such classics as Oblivion, Okami, Gears of War, Twilight Princess, New Super Mario Bros., but I don't care, because I'm saying my game of the year is Wii Sports. Don't worry, I have a doctor's appointment to get these opinions fixed. Wii Sports was the game with the most impact this year, and is easily the game that brought me the most joy. Trying it out for the first time, feeling absolutely dumbfounded that they put me in a video game, constantly playing it with friends and family, ripping it out at parties, and it's still fun to this day. My pick is Wii Sports. Of course, the big battle this year was between Okami and Twilight Princess to see which was the better Zelda game, and Gears of War finally brought the 360 a huge exclusive, but Wii Sports, guys. It's about time we had another oddball year. 2005 wasn't the biggest, really. Surely some solid titles came out, but overall, not as impactful as something like 2007. Resident Evil 4 is definitely the big one of the bunch. This is an all-time classic, and alongside it we have God of War, Fear, Call of Duty 2, and Shadow of the Colossus. And I'd say Shadow is my go-to game of the year. I have yet to play Resident Evil 4, so I'm going with this guy. This game is like if Punch-Out was open world. You run around and you beat bosses. That's amazing. One oddball year in the form of 2005 ain't enough to take down 2004. Half-Life 2, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Halo 2, Burnout 3, Metal Gear Solid 3, and on top of that, games like Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, Metroid Prime 2, Pikmin 2. Oh my god, this is what you call a good year for games. But San Andreas is my all-time favorite Grand Theft Auto. I gotta go with that. I love me some Pikmin and Burnout, but come on, you can do this in San Andreas. Fucking I don't know, the oddball year returns considering Madden 04 won Game of the Year at the VGAs. It's weird because The Wind Waker came out this year in North America, but it came out in Japan in December 2002, so really, what year is it eligible for? Well, let's go with this one. 2003 nominees generally were Wind Waker, SSX3, Tony Hawk's Underground, and I will be completely honest, none of these outside of Wind Waker really speak to me. But I will let my childhood reign supreme and say either my game of the year is The Simpsons Hit and Run or SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. I have to go with Battle for Bikini Bottom. I picked this game over Wind Waker, Christ. Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Super Mario Sunshine, Metroid Prime, Morrowind, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, Kingdom Hearts. Those 365 days were definitely filled up with quality games, which is weird because 2002 never really jumps out to me as a huge gaming year. It even had stuff like Eternal Darkness, but I think you guys know where my priorities lie. It's going to Super Mario Sunshine. I played my fair share of Metroid Prime over the years, but never fully beat it, which just won't stop hurting me. I've been able to see how phenomenal this game is, but I've gotta go with Sunshine, simply because I've played more of it. It's about time. With the launch of the GameCube and Xbox came some heavy hitters like Smash Bros. Melee and Halo, with Grand Theft Auto 3, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Ico on the PlayStation 2, and Conker's Bad Fur Day on the N64. Even with all these classics, I will definitely say Pikmin 1 takes the cake. I effing adore Pikmin, and there's something about the first one that's just so cool to me. It has a strict time limit in comparison to 2 and 3, and while that could be seen as a downside, I don't know, it makes the game a little more interesting. Overall, I'd say Pikmin 3 is my favorite in the series, which is weird because I didn't even mention that game for my 2013 Game of the Year, but Pikmin 1 is just so much fun to pop in and replay. It's so easy to just plow through quickly, and I really love games like that, so I'd say it's my favorite game of 2001. Yeah, Melee's great and all, but I already claimed 3 Smash Bros. Games to be my game of the year. Let's mix some things up. Plus, I'm probably more likely to replay Pikmin 1 in comparison to Melee. Right now, I'd rather play Smash Bros. Ultimate. Even when Halo 1 screams Game of the Year on its packaging, we're going with a personal favorite of mine. Well, that was the quickest 6 hours I've ever experienced. It felt like 22 minutes or something, and it looks like it's finally time to reveal the winner! And the winner for Year of the Year 2018 is 2018. What the